Well, today Joe Biden demanded passage of something called H.R. 1. It's the very first piece of legislation Democrats sponsored. It's the For the People Act. That ought to make you nervous. That law would allow Democratic operatives to go door to door collecting mail-in ballots. It would legalize voter fraud. Democrats have said for months that if you oppose this, then you're a racist. You support Jim Crow.
Making it harder for younger, poorer, non-white, and typically Democratic voters to access the ballot. Shame, shame, shame.
This is why when the states start to enact these kinds of voter suppression laws, what I call steal your vote laws,
is to try to deny people of color, young people, poor people, the right to vote, people with disabilities.
The right to vote. Like, you can't go to the polls like people have for 250 years? Are you joking? These people will literally say anything to increase their own power. Even the weak sisters in the Senate didn't buy it on the Republican side. It's got no chance of passing. Republicans blocked it today using the filibuster. So now, in the complex dance that is the legislative process, Democrats are suddenly open to a compromise offered by Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And that compromise would include voter ID laws that virtually every person in America, including majorities of black people, for whatever it's worth, support. You need one to cash a check. Why not to vote? And yet, it was just a few weeks ago that Stacey Abrams, the Oracle of Georgia, was telling us that's racism. Now she's telling us, oh, it's a good idea.
No one has ever objected to having to prove who you are to vote. It's been part of our nation's history since the inception of voting.
Voters without a driver's license or state ID must surrender their personal information and risk identity theft just to receive an absentee ballot. And then there are the 200,000 Georgia voters who don't have either ID, and the putative free ID that is not free when you factor in the cost of transportation and the cost of underlying documents.
It just makes your head spin. Brit Hume is Fox News' senior political analyst by virtue of his wisdom, not age. He joins us tonight. Brit, I just need a sane person to bounce us off of one sentence. I feel like I'm going crazy. I've sat on the set for the last 5 years, and in fact, I think been called a racist for saying that people ought to show ID before they vote, as they do to rent a car, stay in a hotel, or fly in a plane. Now they're telling us they were always for that. Have I gone insane? Did I have a stroke? What is this?
Well, the clip you just showed from Stacey Abrams, who's one of those saying that no one was ever really opposed to this, it proves that people were, and she was one of them. The problem they're having now, of course, Tucker, is that voter ID is wildly popular. I mean, something on the order of 80%, according to one current poll, and that poll reflects earlier polling on this issue going back a number of years. People think voter ID is a good idea, and the bill, H.R. 1 or S1, if you're considering in the Senate, would loosen voter ID provisions in all across the country, which a number of states already have. So already have voter ID requirements. In fact, it would say that, well, if you didn't have a voter ID, you could swear out a statement saying you are who you say you are, which seems to me wouldn't be terribly effective. But that's what the bill was saying, and that's one of the reasons why it was opposed, and one of the reasons why Republicans felt quite safe in opposing it.
If you wanted to restore the public's faith in clean elections, indeed, if you wanted to have clean elections, why wouldn't you have the elections we've had for hundreds of years, where you go to the polling place and vote on a paper ballot? There's a record of how you voted. There are neutral observers there to make sure that no one cheats. Why wouldn't we do that?
Well, one reason why we wouldn't do that is that I think it is believed by Democrats. You heard Chuck Schumer categorizing some of them, some of their voters, that the easier you make it for people to vote, the more of their voters will turn out and vote and elect them. So they want to make it, very easy, and they refer to all these bills that are being enacted around the country in various states as restrictive. Well, every voter law, every voting provision law is restricted to some extent. For example, we don't allow people to vote by phone or to vote over the internet. Right. Well, why do we do that? We do that to protect against the kind of fraud that would arise when you make voting so easy that anybody can do it, and it becomes, not simply easy to vote but hard to cheat. It becomes easy to vote and easy to cheat. And that's, of course, the tension there between those two things.
Yeah, just let people vote telepathically. We also want to point out, just in the interest of our comprehensive news coverage here in the hour, that it is, in fact, your birthday, Brit Hume, and we want to wish you the very happiest possible birthday a man can have. Do you have any words of wisdom for our viewers?
Yes, I would have this word of wisdom for our viewers. if you get to be my age, and I'm not going to say what it is, take good care of yourself because you'll have aches and pains. And I have them. You also will find, as Joe Biden has, and I have to some extent, that your memory isn't what it used to be, nor is the color of your hair as it was reflected in that photo you just put up there. So thank you for those good wishes, Tucker. Thank you very much.
Man, you're doing better than anyone else I know at your age.
Well, thanks.
Brit Hume, the great Brit Hume, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.